Taeoh is a spoiled rich college student who thinks life is all about fun. However, everything changes when his childhood best friend suddenly moves into his house. Now, when she starts dating his closest friend, he finds himself getting way too close to her and eventually falling for the one person he was never supposed to. The story begins with Taeoh, a worthless chaebol heir who, on his 20th birthday, asks his father, Jung-gil, for a house because he wants a private base to bag a few baddies. But his stepmother tries to ruin his plans, so Taeoh reminds her of how she slept her way into his father's bed. After a few arguments, Jung-gil gives in, but promises to check on him once a week. However, that promise expires instantly, and Taeoh begins living his best life. Sadly, instead of baddies, the only people who ever visit him are his male friends, Chohoon and Do-hyun. A few years later, Taeoh has yet to even touch a female fly, but his friend sets him up on a blind date. While getting ready for the date, Taeoh excitedly checks out his sausage while thinking about Songee, his broke childhood friend. Songee is a painfully broke architecture student who can't even afford water to flush the toilet, and her mother left to buy milk but never returned. Later, Taeoh picks Sanji up, but tells her it's the last ride she'll be getting. However, she refuses to accept this because she depends on Taeoh a lot. After losing her father, Taeoh comforted and started looking out for Sanji, but everything changed when he overheard her telling her friends that he's not her type. At first, he tried to ignore her, but Songee clung to him, making it impossible. After dropping her off at school, Taeoh announces that he's about to start dating, meaning her free transport service is officially over. Sanji laughs it off, saying no sane girl would go on a blind date with someone as childish as him. However, her friends fawn over Taeoh as they reveal he's actually popular and known as every girl's first love. They also mention that his aloof friend, Do-hyun, is another top-tier heartthrob who girls fall for despite knowing he will emotionally ruin them. Songee, however, is not moved because to her, Taeoh is just a piece of furniture she grew up with. Later, Taeoh meets up with Do-hyun and starts rambling about his blind date, but Do-hyun is only interested in stacking bills instead of chicks. Elsewhere, Chohoon's father, Seok-won, attends his boss's son's wedding with his wife, proudly bragging about Chohoon's achievements, only for him to see Chohoon on stage acting like a complete clown. He drags him home and punishes him, but Chohoon insists he wants to become a musical actor. In a fit of rage, Seok-won disowns him and throws him out with nothing but his underwear. Chohoon swears to return successful, and before leaving home, he steals his mother's dress. Meanwhile, a pampered heiress named Garen disguises herself and escapes her bodyguards in search of independence. As she gets into a taxi, it becomes clear that her destination is none other than Taeoh's house. At the same time, Songee rushes home only to discover that the bank has auctioned off her house. Inside, she runs into Do-hyun, who is working part-time, and realizing she has lived there her entire life, Do-hyun feels bad for her. Back at Taeoh's house, Chohoon climbs over the wall after noticing Taeoh isn't home. When the doorbell rings, he opens it to find Garen, who immediately mistakes him for a creep. Just as he clears the misunderstanding, Sanji arrives looking miserable, followed by Do-hyun, who recognizes her instantly. While Songee and Chohoon are already familiar with each other, all four of them realize they're all connected to Taeoh. Meanwhile, the man of the hour, Taeoh, hurries to his blind date and falls in love at first sight with Seon, who's simply minding her business. After Songee and the others settle down, she tells them about Taeoh's date and tries to call him, but he doesn't pick up. Meanwhile, Taeoh arrives at the restaurant and is surprised to see that Sehyun is his blind date. His straightforward approach with her leaves Sehyun puzzled but pleased. While waiting for Taeoh, Sanji and the others decide to talk about how they know him. Sanji says they have known each other since childhood, while Garen and Taeoh's families have been friends for a while. Do-hyun, on the other hand, refuses to share and calls Taeoh instead, which is when he sees a photo of Sanji. Sanji then approaches Do-hyun privately and begs him not to tell Taeoh about her family's bankruptcy. Meanwhile, Taeoh prepares to abandon his date after learning that Songee is at his house. After apologizing to Sehyun, he asks her for another date, and she happily agrees because she finds the klutz cute. Taeoh soon arrives home, just as Do-hyun leaves, and upon entering the house, he finds his three homeless friends excitedly waiting for him. Taeoh tries to find out why they're there, but Songee wants others to leave before she can explain. However, they start arguing as no one wants to leave, causing Taeoh to bark at them. When they settle down, Taeoh tells them that they can't stay, but before they can beg him, Garen's mom calls her. This spooks Garen, and she suddenly smashes her phone, leaving everyone stunned. After that, she begs Taeoh to let her stay, and Chohoon does the same, even showing Taeoh his injured peaches to explain how far his father went to kick him out. Elsewhere, Garen's controlling mother panics about her missing daughter and warns the bodyguards to find Garen before her father learns about it. At Taeoh's house, Songee gives Taeoh beer to calm him down, but he suspects she wants to ask for something. However, Sanji beats about the bush for a while until Taeoh figures she must have fought with her mom again, so he advises her to go back home and settle things. When Taeoh expresses his fear that his house might turn into a boarding house, Sanji gives up asking him to let her stay. Later that night, Taeoh excitedly texts his blind date, but she scolds him for not showing up, leaving Taeoh puzzled. The following day, he asks his friends about it, only to learn that he met the wrong person. When Do-hyun asks Taeoh about his friends, Taeoh explains that Garen and Chohoon stayed while Sungji went back home. Meanwhile, Songee goes back to her former house to collect her father's nameplate, only to run into Sehyun, the daughter of the new owner. Sehyun smugly tells Songee to move the rest of her things out of the house, as it makes her uncomfortable. Hurt by her words, Songee apologizes coldly before leaving, which annoys Sehyun. Later, Sungji makes a list, and the only thing she can brag about is her friendship with Taeoh. She reflects on when her friends asked if she had a crush on him, but she told them that it was only briefly, which made her uncomfortable, so she dropped it. Since money is the only thing she can trust right now, she decides to find a part-time job. Meanwhile, Taeoh tells Do-hyun about his dream girl and makes up his mind to find her, believing she attends their school. But Do-hyun refuses to help him and heads to the library, where he finds Sungee preparing to work there. He helps her settle down, but when he asks where she spent the night, Songee quickly brushes him off like a fly. At school, Taeoh heads to the art department to find Seon since she had a camera with her on the date. And being the protagonist of this world, he really meets Seon there, leaving her stunned. He then proudly explains how he found her, and Sehyun is quite impressed. Taeoh then asks why she pretended to be his date, and Sehyun explains that it's because she was having fun. He decides to join her club, believing that fate wants them to be together. But Taeoh's hope is crushed when he learns that Seon is actually older than him. That night, the library alarm goes off, and Do-hyun catches an intruder only to realize it's just Sanji crashing at the library. Taeoh, on the other hand, heads to her house, and when he learns that Sanji has been kicked out, meanwhile, Do-hyun locks up the library and tells Sanji to go to Taeoh's house, but she refuses, so he lets her sleep at a convenience store where he works part-time. As her stomach growls, Sungee shamelessly asks for a free cup of ramen, and Do-hyun agrees. He wonders what she plans to do next, so Sungee assures him that her mom will surely contact her soon. And just as she predicted, Sunji's mother calls on cue. Sanji is excited to answer the call, but all that vanishes when Sunji's mom informs her that she'll not be returning. Sanji frantically begs her mom, but she coldly tells Sanji to stop calling her because she wants to live for herself for once instead of being a mom. After the call, Sanji breaks down while Taeoh searches everywhere for her. She then heads to a bridge and briefly considers looking for an afterlife Airbnb, but she changes her mind at the last minute and picks up the bridge phone to tell someone about her miserable life. However, before Sungee can finish talking, the police arrive to rescue her and even call Taeoh to pick her up at the station. Do-hyun, who's also worried about her, calls the police and finds out there was an incident concerning a woman of Songee's age, so he rushes to the police station. But before he can take her, Taeoh rushes in claiming to be Sanji's guardian. Taeoh is surprised to see Do-hyun, but Sanji lies that she only met him briefly at the convenience store. Afterwards, Do-hyun heads back to work while Taeoh drives Sungee to a playground, where he scolds her for not telling him about her situation. They soon start arguing about it, and Sungee admits that she didn't want to look pathetic in front of him. After pouring out her frustration, Sungee breaks down, making Taeoh feel bad for blaming her. Taeoh apologizes to her, but makes her apologize for keeping him in the dark instead of relying on him. Later, he takes her home and even gives up his room, after which he calls Do-hyun to thank him for looking out for Sungee. The following day, Taeoh and his new housemates discuss their living situation. But when Taeoh tells them that Sungee is the only one allowed to stay, Chohoon suspects they must be dating. So Sungee bluntly lays her cards on the table about her family situation, making Chohoon and Garen feel bad for complaining. Without asking for Taeoh's opinion, the three of them make themselves comfortable and share house duties in order not to be freeloaders. This leaves Taeoh with no choice but to go along with it. A few moments later, Do-hyun arrives to give Songee her box, and she asks why he was at the station. When Do-hyun simply explains that it's because she never returned, Songee is a bit touched. As he moves closer to lift her box, Songee's heart starts fluttering, leaving her flustered. Later, Cho-hoon takes the bus with Garin for a part-time job, and because it's Garin's first time riding a bus, Cho-hoon figures she must be filthy rich, so he decides to be her bestie. Meanwhile, as Taeoh buys a bunch of desserts to please Seon, Do-hyun keeps asking about Sanji. Taeoh wishes someone could take Sanji off his hands so he can focus on his new love interest. On his way out, he picks up a magazine with Sehyun's interview and learns that she was actually a big shot abroad. Later, they meet up at the film club, and Taeoh speaks to her casually because he wants her to start seeing him as a man. But Sehyun refuses to let him join the club because filmmaking isn't even his dream. So he offers her the dessert as a bribe, making Sehyun happy. Later during lunch, Do-hyun and Songee run into each other at the cafeteria, and because it's too crowded, Do-hyun takes her to the rooftop. There, Songee chatters on about her architecture classes and apologizes to Do-hyun for boring him. But he makes her heart flutter again when he says he finds everything about her interesting. Songee also finds Do-hyun quite fun, even though others find him boring. After school, Taeoh offers to drive Sehyun home, but worries she might look down on his Maybach, but to his surprise, she agrees. Elsewhere, Cho-hoon and Garin work as extras for a movie, but Garin disrupts the filming when she puts on her napkin, forgetting she's not on a Bridgerton film set. She continues to mess things up until the crew fires her, and because of Garin's outburst, Cho-hoon leaves without even getting paid. But instead of getting mad at Garin, he comforts her and gives her a few pointers on how to be a poor person. Intrigued by his lesson, Garin decides to make Cho-hoon her poverty master. Meanwhile, Taeoh drops Sehyun off on the roadside as she refuses to disclose her address in case he turns out to be a serial creep. Still, she gives him the green light, convincing Taeoh that he might actually have a shot at bagging a baddie. When Taeoh returns home, Cho-hoon shamelessly plans to use Taeoh's phone number for auditions since he can't afford a phone yet. Garin, who has never shared a room in her life, has to share a room with Songee, and she assures Songee that she doesn't have any bad sleeping habits. But as soon as she hits the bed, Garin starts snoring like an expensive race car engine, making it impossible for Songee to sleep. So, she heads outside to sleep on a bench instead. Just then, Taeoh pops out of the window, wondering why she's outside. After explaining it to him, Songee asks about his blind date. He then tells her all about it, but Songee isn't impressed. However, that doesn't stop Taeoh from singing Sehyun's praises. Songee then thanks Taeoh again for taking her in and offers to cook dinner the following day. But Taeoh refuses as he has to eat with his family. The following day, Sunji's class is asked to form groups for a project, but Songee somehow ends up in the same group with Sehyun. During the group meeting, Sehyun excuses herself and leaves with some rich dude. The girls start gossiping about her, and Songee learns that Sehyun is a casual flirt who's not into relationships. Songee then heads to her part-time gig at the library, where she peeks around for Do-hyun but doesn't find him. Unbeknownst to her, Do-hyun is in a corner looking at her while smiling. And he suddenly appears behind and helps her remove some books from the top shelf. While working together, Do-hyun gives Songee bandages for the scars on her hands. Having someone who cares about her makes Songee all warm and fuzzy inside. That night, Taeoh goes to his father's house for dinner, and his stepmother welcomes him with smiles, making Taeoh uncomfortable. But she stops pretending to be nice when Taeoh playfully teases her son for having bad grades. To get back at Taeoh, she mentions Sungee's mom. Apparently, Sungee's mom was renting a shop in Jongil's building, but she fled without paying rent. Taeoh is pissed when his stepmother mentions that Sungee's mom eloped with some man. He angrily warns his family not to tell Songee anything or ask her for money. That night, Taeoh heads back home and overhears Songee turning down a blind date because she's interested in someone else. But when she starts describing her crush, Taeoh is stunned because it sounds like him. Songee soon realizes that her phone is connected to a loudspeaker. But before she can turn it off, Taeoh mistakenly breaks a flower pot while trying to sneak off. This draws Sungee's attention, making things awkward. Songee cautiously approaches and asks if he heard anything, but Taeoh lies that he didn't. Songee is relieved to hear this, and as Taeoh scurries off, he trips, almost breaking his bone. Afterwards, he reflects on Songee's call and concludes that she truly has feelings for him. As Taeoh worries about these non-existent feelings, Songee happily stares at the bandages from her actual crush. The following day, Taeoh dreams about kissing Sanji, but he's startled when he wakes up to find her by his bedside. Unable to handle such a strange dream, Taeoh refuses to take Sanji to school anymore. Sanji tries to make him change his mind, but decides to take the bus after he stubbornly refuses to budge. However, Taeoh changes his mind and gives Sanji a ride because the bus is too crowded. But he pushes her hand away when she tries to hold on to him as usual. Elsewhere, Cho-hoon auditions for a musical, but the judges are not impressed. However, Garen finds it mesmerizing that she gives him a standing ovation. Later, he treats her to street food, which Garen has never had in her life. Garen then compliments Cho-hoon's audition, which instantly lifts his spirits. At school, Songee and her friend Mina celebrate after being accepted for an architecture internship program. Sanji then rushes over to tell Taeoh the good news, but he tries to avoid her. She happily offers to treat him to lunch, but he coldly turns her down. However, Sanji doesn't mind and simply informs him about the good news before leaving. As soon as she leaves, Do-hyun arrives, and Taeoh heads to the basketball court with him to shoot a few hoops to distract himself from thinking about Songee. After the game, Do-hyun asks Taeoh why he's distracted, and Taeoh explains that he's worried someone might confess to him. Do-hyun also reveals that a girl has been on his mind, but he doesn't mention that it's Songee. Taeoh is surprised to hear Do-hyun talking about a girl because he's normally more interested in anything but dating. Before leaving, Do-hyun advises Taeoh to make things clear to the girl who has a crush on him in order not to string her along. Taeoh returns home that night to find that Sanji has set up a camp in the yard to avoid sleeping in the same room with Garen because of her snoring, but Taeoh suspects she's doing it just to get his attention. Yet he still worries about her catching a cold, so he gives her a blanket and even helps her set up the tent properly. To thank him, Sanji treats Taeoh to cheap ice cream, and on the way back, she tells him about her internship. Taeoh worries about her safety since she might be working on a construction site. Sanji expresses her gratitude to him for always looking out for her, but Taeoh uses the opportunity to make it clear that he's only doing it because she's his friend and nothing more. Sanji doesn't take him seriously and just tries to take a bite of his ice cream. Startled by this, Taeoh drops the ice cream and storms off. The following day, Garen excitedly informs everyone that she wants to throw a party to thank them for taking care of her. Songee suggests inviting Do-hyun, but Taeoh tells her that Do-hyun never attends parties. Still, she decides to ask him, which makes Taeoh wonder when they became friends. Later, Songee tells Do-hyun about her internship and also invites him to the party. Do-hyun agrees and asks why she wants to be an architect. Songee explains that it's because she wants to follow in her father's footsteps. She then asks Do-hyun why he's always studying, and he reveals that he plans to take the civil service exam. After that, they exchange numbers, and Songee is flustered when Do-hyun casually calls her name. Meanwhile, Taeoh finally auditions to join the film club, only to be interviewed by a bunch of dudes who probably joined the club because of Seiyan. One of them immediately rejects Taeoh after learning he has no actual reason for wanting to join them. But the other guys are quite satisfied when they learn that Taeoh used to shoot short films for fun with a cool camcorder. The first dude then asks how he knew about their club, and Taeoh's sight lingers in Seihyun before declaring he was led there by fate. Despite knowing he only came because of a hot chick, the guys agree to let him join. But Seihyun feels it's too easy, so she tells him to film a short film and agrees to let him join only if it makes her laugh. Taeoh agrees to her terms without hesitation. Later, he follows her around his neighborhood like a useless accessory while she practices her photography. As they talk about the neighborhood, Taeoh reveals that he lives alone, but this makes Seihyun wonder why he hasn't invited her over. Taeoh is surprised to hear this, and as Seihyun explains how pompous guys usually are if they stay alone, Taeoh realizes she has questionable taste in men. Seihyun admits that Taeoh is different from her usual types and commends him for it. Taeoh is excited to hear this, and Seihyun asks him to invite her over sometime. Taeoh is on cloud 9 until he remembers that his house is basically a boarding house at the moment, so he lies that he has a rat infestation to handle before inviting her over. Seihyun is irritated to hear this and runs off, asking him to take care of it before coming to her. Meanwhile, Cho-hoon helps an excited Garen prepare for their rooftop party and finds himself getting lost in her smile. That night during the party, Taeoh, Garen, and Cho-hoon leave to get something from the house while Songee and Do-hyun remain there awkwardly exchanging googly eyes at each other. Do-hyun then asks Songee to make time for a movie date with him, but before she can respond, Taeoh and the others return with a cake to celebrate her internship. After a while, the group gets drunk, and Cho-hoon asks Do-hyun if he has a girlfriend, but Do-hyun hints that he might soon. Cho-hoon continues to press him for details, but Do-hyun brushes him off, so he turns to ask Sanji, and she admits that she likes someone. This makes Taeoh uncomfortable, but Sanji passes out before she can reveal her crush's name. After sobering up, Sanji helps Taeoh clear the rooftop and learns that Do-hyun left a while ago. When she asks if she did anything stupid, Taeoh hesitates before telling her what she said during the party. Sanji is disappointed to hear this and worries about what Do-hyun will think about her. But Do-hyun smiles sheepishly as he recalls what Songee said at the party. Meanwhile, Taeoh finally admits to Songee that he overheard the call she made on the rooftop. He then advises her to stop liking him, but to his shock, Songee bursts into laughter and reveals that her crush is actually someone else. However, Taeoh refuses to accept this until she explains that it's someone who works part-time with her. Taeoh is devastated to hear this, because how dare the universe not revolve around him. Although he keeps telling himself that it's for the best, Taeoh is still unable to swallow such rejection. The following day, Do-hyun and Songee meet up for their first date, and during dinner, Songee eagerly waits for Do-hyun to ask her to be his girlfriend. Unfortunately, that never happens, leaving her disappointed. Taeoh tries to feed her to cheer her up, but even that doesn't work. Later, he checks on her and teases her when he guesses she must have been rejected by her crush. Songee denies it, explaining that she's just confused about the status of their relationship. Taeoh advises her to express her feelings instead of just going with the flow. But Songee doesn't want to make the first move and feels she might not be attractive to guys. However, Taeoh reassures her that she's such a catch and even gives her pointers on how to be bolder. Before leaving, Taeoh tells Sanji that a true man never leaves his girl unsure about his feelings. Later, Taeoh meets up with Do-hyun to chat about his relationship progress. But Do-hyun simply says he's just casually going out with the girl, making Taeoh realize Do-hyun is probably the playboy type. Taeoh advises him that the girl might not like such an approach, and just then, it hits him that Sanji is also going through the same thing. So he tells Do-hyun about it and calls Sanji's crush an unserious flirt, which makes Do-hyun upset. A few moments later, Taeoh goes to Sungee's workplace to see her laughing with her coworker, whom he immediately mistakes for her crush, but Songee denies it and pushes him out before he can get too nosy. Meanwhile, Garin tries to cheer Cho-hoon, who has been depressed because no one contacted him after his audition. But he ends up taking out his frustration on her for praising him that day. Soon after, Taeoh arrives and takes them out to cheer up Cho-hoon. But as soon as they leave, Garin's bodyguards patrol the neighborhood, searching for her. A few moments later, Taeoh notices his father's car outside Do-hyun's father's restaurant and rushes over to see him trying to increase the shop's rent. He tries to take his friends elsewhere, but before they can leave, Do-hyun arrives. As the two men argue over the rent, Songee also arrives and tries to flee before Taeoh's father sees her. Unfortunately, before she can leave, Jong-gil steps outside to see Taeoh angry. He then turns to Songee and tells her about her mother's outstanding rent. Songee apologizes, but he refuses to let it go until Taeoh steps in. Taeoh decides to cancel their outing, but Do-hyun invites everyone to the basketball court, where they watch him get aggressive with Taeoh during a game. But as soon as Cho-hoon steps in to stop the game, Do-hyun storms off. Later, Songee goes to the convenience store to cheer him up, but Do-hyun refuses to talk about what happened. Back home, Taeoh worries about Songee, and Cho-hoon advises him to tone it down, since they're both looking to date other people. Taeoh then checks on Cho-hoon because of his depression about his audition. Meanwhile, Songee heads home alone, frustrated about how she left things with Do-hyun. But Do-hyun feels he can't do much for Songee, which makes him hate himself and give her the cold shoulder. The following day, Sanji is excited to start her internship at an NGO that builds low-income homes. During their lunch break, Sanji and Mina run into their creepy former senior, who makes their skin crawl. After he leaves, they complain about him, and Songee mentions that he now works for her dream company. But Mina warns her to be careful, since Daejeon is a well-known creep when he was still a student. While heading home after work, Songee receives a message from Do-hyun. He plans to pick her up at the bus stop, but out of consideration, Sanji tells him not to come. Meanwhile, Taeoh drops Se-hyun by the road as usual, but this time she agrees to let him walk her home. However, Taeoh receives a call from Cho-hoon's audition and drives off immediately, leaving her disappointed. But the moment Taeoh gets home, he calls Sanji to tell her about the news and even picks her up at the bus stop so that they can break the news to Chohyun together. Do-hyun's mood immediately plummets when he sees Taeoh happily picking Sanji up. Back home, Chohyun is considering going back home like the prodigal son when the power goes out. So he rushes out to check on Garen, only to be ambushed with a surprise cake and the news about his successful audition. But Chohyun doesn't believe it until Taeoh shows him the message. The following day, Do-hyun is unable to forget how happy Sanji looked with Taeoh at the bus stop, but he pretends to be fine when he meets Sanji and even invites her for lunch off campus. Songee then tells Do-hyun about the surprise party and admits she wanted to call him after receiving the news, but she didn't want to disturb him. However, Do-hyun tells her to call or text him whenever she wants to, as he doesn't want her to always be the one caring for him. Do-hyun then admits that he's jealous of Taeoh taking the role of always caring for her, and Songee is stunned when he suddenly asks if she and Taeoh have ever had feelings for each other. After regaining her composure, Songee admits that they've been attracted to each other before. She then assures him that she'll try to stop being overly considerate of him, and this makes Do-hyun very happy. Meanwhile, Taeoh enjoys a library date with his crush, and she shows him her father's photography while talking about how he travels a lot. Taeoh realizes that she misses her dad and might have daddy issues, but Se-hyun assures him that she supports her father's hippie lifestyle. But instead of checking out his photos, Taeoh is more mesmerized by Se-hyun's beauty. Later that night, as Taeoh sorts through his videos, Sanji barges into his room, startling him into shutting down his laptop. Sanji finds this suspicious and suspects he might be watching some naughty videos. Later, they head to the playground, and Sanji asks what he was working on. Taeoh explains that he needs to submit a video to join the film club. Sanji thinks the club is snobbish for not accepting him into their club, but Taeoh explains he only wants in because he's chasing a girl. He reveals that he plans to confess to her using the video, but Songee fears he might get rejected. However, Taeoh is not worried and believes his charm will help him win Se-hyun. This makes Songee jealous and wishes someone would ask her out in a romantic way. Since that might never happen, she tells Taeoh that she might make the first move, but he warns her against it. Sanji then asks about his relationship with Do-hyun, and Taeoh explains that they've been avoiding each other. So Sanji advises him on how to make up with Do-hyun. The following day, Garen takes Chohyun to buy a new phone, and after getting their phones, Garen excitedly goes for her job interview at a supermarket while Chohyun worries about leaving the clueless spoiled brat alone. Elsewhere, Taeoh makes the first move to approach Do-hyun, and without saying anything, they settle their differences. Later, Taeoh offers to talk to his dad about the rent issue, but Do-hyun tells him not to interfere. Still, Taeoh apologizes since he didn't exactly choose to be born to his mean Scrooge of a father. But Do-hyun says he's proud to be his father's son, which makes Taeoh feel like baloney for insulting his own dad. He then happily informs Do-hyun that he'll be formally confessing to Se-hyun today, and Do-hyun reveals that he plans to ask his crush out, too. Later on, Taeoh uses a drone to deliver a box to Se-hyun containing the flash drive with his video, which he swears would definitely crack her up. But as they start watching his crappy film, Taeoh begins to feel uneasy with Se-hyun's serious look. At the end of the video, everyone commends Taeoh for doing a good job except Se-hyun. But the next moment, she breaks into a smile, making Taeoh happy. The club members congratulate Taeoh since it means he will be dating the school's campus queen. Meanwhile, Chohyun learns that he was only hired as an understudy, but they still offer to pay him for every show, even though he might never get to perform. Although disappointed, Chohyun instantly lights up when he hears the amount they pay for each show. But after the meeting, he is confused whether he should be happy or sad to be getting paid to do nothing. Meanwhile, Garen is put on probation as a sampler at the supermarket, but she ends up eating the samples herself. Elsewhere, Taeoh enjoys a date with Se-hyun and listens attentively as she tells him about her hobbies. Se-hyun is happy about this because all the guys she has dated usually boast about themselves. After returning from his date, Taeoh proudly tells his roommates about his date and also tells them to start preparing to move out since he needs to invite his girlfriend over. Just then, Jung-gil calls Taeoh, asking if Songee can tutor his stepbrother, Young-ho, but Taeoh refuses. However, Songee overhears them and volunteers to do it to offset her mother's debt. Since he cannot stop her, Taeoh offers to go with her, and later, Songee congratulates him on his new girlfriend. The following day, everyone leaves except Chohyun, who is approached by Garen's bodyguards. Choo-hoon is shocked when he sees the missing poster of Garen and a 10 million won reward, but he quickly composes himself and doesn't reveal that he knows her. After they leave, Cho-hoon searches up Garen's family on the internet and is stunned to discover that she's a chaebol heiress. At the film club, Se-hyun invites Taeoh to join her for a filmmaking contest, but Taeoh is not confident about it. However, she assures him that he can do it, and carried away by her little praise, Taeoh almost moves in for a kiss, but she dismisses him like trash. She then dumps the majority of the work on Taeoh, including her personal school projects. But like a love-sick fool, Taeoh agrees to do them all, so she decides to reward him with a kiss. Unfortunately, he receives a message at that very moment, and Se-hyun takes the opportunity to leave. When Taeoh checks his phone, he realizes he promised to follow Songee for the unpaid tutoring gig. So he rushes over and makes it in time before she can go in alone. Inside, Taeoh praises Sanji in front of his family to prevent them from treating her badly. But Young-ho is only interested in how pretty Songee looks, earning him a scolding from Taeoh. Later, Songee and Taeoh check Young-ho's non-existent scores, and Taeoh scolds him. Before leaving, Sanji thanks him for looking out for her, and as soon as Taeoh leaves, Do-hyun arrives to negotiate with Jong-gil. Sanji overhears them talking, and Do-hyun asks to do all the maintenance in one of Jong-gil's buildings, while his father's rent remains the same. Jong-gil immediately agrees to it, and just then, Do-hyun notices Sanji in the corner, so she has no choice but to step out. She then waits for him outside and commends him for being resourceful. Do-hyun considers holding Sanji's hand, but can't find the courage to. But he asks if she'll be home at night, and Sanji confirms it, even though Do-hyun refuses to reveal why he's asking. That night, Se-hyun finally allows Taeoh to drive her home while Sanji wonders why Do-hyun asked about her evening routine, but she makes up her mind to be bold and ask him out. But just as she steps out of the door, she runs into Do-hyun practicing how to ask her out. Meanwhile, Taeoh finally arrives at Se-hyun's house only to realize it's Songji's former house. He tells Se-hyun about it, and she reveals that she actually has a class with Songee. Still, Se-hyun is jealous that Taeoh is talking about another girl in front of her. Taeoh apologizes, but continues to talk about his past with Sanji. However, Se-hyun warns him never to speak about Sanji and the past whenever he's at her house and rewards him with a kiss. This makes Taeoh happy until he remembers that his girlfriend now lives in Sanji's favorite place. At Taeoh's house, Do-hyun acts slow as usual until Sanji asks about the flowers. Do-hyun gives her the flowers, and Songee is excited to receive them, but she waits expectantly for his confession. However, Do-hyun takes his sweet little time before he musters the courage to confess his feelings to her. Sanji acknowledges him with a smile, giving Do-hyun the courage to tell her that he really likes her. After accepting Do-hyun's proposal, he suggests telling Taeoh, but Songee asks him to keep it a secret for a while. She then heads back inside, reveling in the fact that she finally has a boyfriend. Do-hyun is also doing a victory dance outside when Taeoh arrives. He notices that Do-hyun seems excited, but doesn't get any information from him. Upon entering the house, Taeoh feels guilty about his new girlfriend's house and assures Songee that he'd never throw her out of his house. The following day, Sanji gives Do-hyun a tour of her office while Taeoh takes Se-hyun helmet shopping, and she gives him another kiss as his reward. Later, Songee meets up with her group members and is pissed when she learns that Se-hyun is making some simp do her share of the work. To make things worse, Se-hyun arrives, holding Taeoh, and when she mentions that Taeoh already knows about the house situation, Songee feels betrayed while Se-hyun is unhappy that Taeoh cares about Songee's feelings. After the meeting, Songee threatens to remove Se-hyun's name from the project if she keeps holding them back. But Se-hyun accuses Sanji of picking on her because of her relationship with Taeoh. After being a total beach, she apologizes for not turning in her work and storms out, leaving Sanji speechless. Later, Sanji returns home to discuss it with Taeoh and admits that she doesn't like Se-hyun. However, she promises to act like an adult and be mature about it. She wishes him the best in his relationship, but instantly changes her mind when she sees that Taeoh is doing Se-hyun's project. She considers telling him about Se-hyun's messy life, but changes her mind. And Taeoh explains that Se-hyun is handling a contest they're participating in while he handles her schoolwork. Annoyed by this, Songee storms out, and the following day, she is telling Mina all about it when their creepy senior interrupts them. He tries to act all sweet with Songee, making her uncomfortable. Elsewhere, Cho-hoon is having a hard time catching up with practice, and the trainer refuses to help him. On his way home, he runs into Garen and briefly considers the 10 million won reward, but immediately brushes it off. Garen complains to him that she was scolded at work for eating all the tteokbokki samples she was supposed to give out, and upon entering the house, Taeoh scolds them for wearing his clothes out and taking his food without permission. Fed up with being treated like a leech, Choo-hoon again considers selling out Garen for the reward. Meanwhile, Sanji asks Do-hyun to accompany her on a personal field trip. Do-hyun almost chokes at the thought of an overnight trip, but he agrees to go with her. However, his excitement vanishes when Songee lets him know that it's a day trip. When she returns home, Taeoh tells her to move into the attic, and she tells him that their creepy senior, Daejin, works on the same site as her. Taeoh warns her to stay away from him, but Songee feels the rumors about him might be exaggerated. This makes him suspect she might have a crush on Daejeon, but she tells him that she's already dating her crush, leaving Taeoh stunned. He follows Songee to the attic to talk her out of it since her crush made her doubt herself. But Songee assures him that her boyfriend is actually a decent guy, after which she promises to introduce him soon. Taeoh gives up and decides to let Songee handle her life instead of overreacting. The following day, Garen and Choo-hoon help Songee prepare for a date while Taeoh tries to make her wear a potato sack instead. Later, she asks him for a ride to tutor Young-ho, but he refuses. However, on her way out, Do-hyun picks her up, and while waiting for traffic, she pulls her hand away from his waist, but Do-hyun puts it back. Suddenly, Taeoh parks beside them and scolds Songee for disturbing Do-hyun, but Do-hyun explains that he was the one who offered her a ride. As they drive away, Taeoh finds himself getting smitten by Songee's beauty, and he also wonders when Songee and Do-hyun got close to each other. He then drops by a store and buys Songee a new bag and shoes. Songee is surprised and happy when she returns home later to see them. A few moments later, she arrives at the spot for her date with Do-hyun, and the two lovebirds explore different stores and enjoy their time together. Meanwhile, Taeoh is also enjoying an outdoor date with Sehyeon when a mom and her son pass by, and his mood instantly drops. Noticing this, Sehyeon talks about her mom just to cheer him up. Teao then mentions that his mom used to take videos of him, and he has them stored. This gives Sehyeon the idea to use them for their contest entry, but Taeoh informs her that his mom passed away, so he doesn't have much. Sehyeon is surprised to hear and quickly apologizes for bringing it up. Still, Taeoh agrees to consider her proposal and get back to her. After their exhilarating date, Sanji walks Do-hyun to the convenience store before happily heading home. Meanwhile, Taeoh receives a message from Sehyeon pressing him to consider her proposal. So, he opens up the video files and watches them. He sees one with Sungji's childhood, which suddenly reminds him that she's not home from her date. He then checks out the window only to see it's raining, making him worry more. Elsewhere, Songee takes shelter from the rain, and Do-hyun calls to apologize for not walking her home or giving her an umbrella. But Songee assures him that she didn't get wet. After the call, Sungee puts her new shoes in a bag and runs barefoot to prevent them from getting wet. Just as Taeoh steps outside to wait for her, he notices her in a corner and goes over only to see her injured foot, so he scolds her for protecting the shoes instead of herself. He then forces Songee to wear his shoe, and they rush home together. Back home, Taeoh helps set some warm blankets for Songee and curses her boyfriend under his breath for letting Songee walk home alone in the rain. The more he stares at the bagged shoes, the angrier Taeoh gets. Songee tries to calm him down, but he ignores her and quietly bandages up her injured foot. Sanji then thanks him for the shoe and bag, but Taeoh simply tells her to break up with her boyfriend because he sounds like a piece of work for not walking her home. Sanji explains that it's because he has to work part-time, but Taeoh is even more angry that he didn't have the decency to give her an umbrella. He then asks why Songee didn't call him to pick her up, and she lets him know that she needs to stop relying on him since they're now dating other people, but Taeoh is unhappy to hear this and storms off. Later, Do-hyun calls her, and Songee lets him know that she's home, making him relieved that she didn't get caught in the rain. After the call, Sunji's spirit almost leaves her body because of the thunder. Worried about her, Taeoh calls to check on her, but she claims to be fine. However, the next moment, another one goes off, making her scream like a banshee. Before Taeoh can offer any solutions, Garen and Choo-hoon burst into his room, terrified, so Taeoh also tells Songee to come over. Later, all four of them hang out in the living room watching a movie, and Taeoh finds his heart fluttering as he watches Songee smile. For the first time in his life, Songee drew a line with him earlier, and now he finds himself wishing things could remain the same between them. A few days later, Taeoh rents a car to take everyone on a trip, and Do-hyun tries to make Cho-hoon move over so that he can sit next to Sanji, but Cho-hoon is too dense to read the room. However, Songee makes up a perfect excuse which makes Garin leave her sit, giving them the perfect opportunity to sit together. A few days ago, Songee was the only one preparing for the trip with Do-hyun. Unfortunately, she left her laptop open and Taeoh stumbled upon it. Meanwhile, during practice, Cho-hoon finally gets the hang of the routine only to learn that one of the supporting actors was commissioned to be the understudy, meaning Cho-hoon might get fired soon. Later that night, Songee returns home only to be ambushed by Taeoh, who questions her about the trip like he's her father. Taeoh scolds her for planning a trip with a guy she just started dating and refuses to believe it, even when she explains that it's for a field report. He even finds it more absurd when she says it's a day trip, so he explains that her boyfriend will definitely take advantage and make her stay overnight. But this just makes Songee even happier. But the next moment, she's stunned when he suddenly begs her not to go. Before she can respond, Cho-hoon returns drunk and tells them he might get fired. He wishes he could get away for a while, which immediately gives Taeoh the idea for them to follow Songee on her trip. Before Songee can protest, everyone happily agrees to go and even suggests inviting Do-hyun. Later, Songee tells Do-hyun about it and apologizes for messing up their plan. Taeoh even invites Se-hyun, and she agrees to follow them. On the way to pick her up, he tells his friends not to be rude to her and even warns them not to mention their living situation. As soon as Se-hyun gets in the car, Cho-hoon and Garin get too close, making her uncomfortable. She then asks Songee if she got her project submission, and Songee smugly informs her that she saw Taeoh working on it all night. But before Se-hyun can read into her meaning, Taeoh interrupts them. On the drive, Taeoh and Se-hyun act all lovey-dovey while Do-hyun holds Sungee's hand and quickly kisses it, leaving her flustered. Later, they stop for pictures, and Se-hyun overhears Cho-hoon and Garin talking about Taeoh's room, which she finds suspicious. Meanwhile, Taeoh asks Songee how her boyfriend felt when she broke off their trip. Songee explains that he was not happy, but despite that, Taeoh is pleased with himself for ruining their plan. After a while, the group splits up and agrees to meet again in an hour. Do-hyun follows Taeoh and learns about how Taeoh sabotaged the trip Songee planned with her boyfriend. He even tells Do-hyun that he asked Songee to break up. Meanwhile, Songee gets jealous when a couple of guys fawn over Se-hyun. But when Se-hyun asks about Taeoh's past, she happily tells her about it. However, Se-hyun quickly loses interest. Elsewhere, Do-hyun questions Taeoh to know why he asked Songee to break up with her boyfriend. Taeoh explains that it's because he let her get drenched in the rain. This makes Do-hyun feel bad, so he tells Taeoh that Songee's boyfriend might not have known about it. However, Taeoh believes it was still irresponsible of him and swears never to let Songee date him. But Do-hyun reminds him that it's not his decision to make. Meanwhile, Garin gives Cho-hoon a little pep talk to help him get over his depression. She even teaches him a few breathing exercises in the process. Later, Do-hyun meets up with Songee, and even though Taeoh's words weigh on him, he's unable to bring himself to ask Songee about it. A few moments later, the group arrives at their lodging, and Taeoh informs them that Se-hyun will be getting a single room. Songee teases him about sneaking into her room, but Taeoh reminds her that she liked the idea of her boyfriend having naughty intentions. Do-hyun overhears this, and after Taeoh leaves, Songee tries to explain it to him. Later, Se-hyun leaves her phone unattended, and Songee sees her planning another trip with some dude, but she quickly flips the phone to prevent Taeoh from seeing it. She then follows him out to shop for groceries and texts Do-hyun about it. After shopping, Taeoh and Songee take the wrong turn, and instead of heading to the lodge, they decide to stop by the sea. Back at the lodge, Se-hyun approaches Garin to borrow a hairpin and learns that she also lives in Taeoh's neighborhood. At the seaside, Taeoh asks Songee about her opinion of Se-hyun, and she explains that Se-hyun might not truly like him. She wishes he could meet someone who is as devoted to loving him. She holds back from telling him about Se-hyun's messy life and simply warns him not to trust her too much. But instead of taking her advice, Taeoh teases her for being jealous. Annoyed by this, Songee storms off, but Taeoh quickly cheers her up. Shortly after they return to the lodge, Do-hyun gives Songee the cold shoulder, and he continues to act that way even during dinner. Suddenly, the production company calls Cho-hoon, making him uneasy. But after some encouragement from the others, he leaves to answer the call, and just as he feared, the company cancels their contract with him. Cho-hoon returns moody and decides to call it a night, while Taeoh goes to comfort him. but Cho-hoon tells him to leave as he prefers to be alone. Outside, Garen explains Cho-hoon's situation to Sehyun, but Sehyun insensitively suggests that Cho-hoon look for another career, pointing out that he doesn't look like someone who can act. This annoys Garen, and she snaps at Sehyun, explaining that Cho-hoon is good at what he does. But in the process, she mentions that Cho-hoon is one of her housemates. Sehyun finds this suspicious and finally pieces everything together, making her realize they're the rat infestation Taeoh was talking about. Meanwhile, Songee calls Do-hyun over by the pool to ask why he's upset. Do-hyun admits that he was jealous because she left with Taeoh without telling him first. He reveals that her friendship with Taeoh actually bothers him, and he hates the fact that she lives at his place. He then explains that being with her makes his feelings chaotic, which he's not used to. Despite this, Sanji is happy to hear him finally express his feelings. To give Do-hyun a little security, Songee reassures him that their love story is part of her future, while her friendship with Taeoh is a history that can't be changed. Do-hyun is happy to hear this and immediately kisses her passionately. Unfortunately, Taeoh witnesses it and is devastated when he realizes he might soon become insignificant in Songee's life. How do you think Taeoh will navigate this new revelation? Make sure to comment, love, to find out what happens in part 2.